I never thought I'd say this, but the day I found out my own mother betrayed me was the day I finally felt free. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Kala, and I'm a nurse from a small town in Ohio. I'm 36, single, and I've spent most of my life taking care of other people, mostly my family. I grew up in a simple house with my mom, Diane, and my younger brother, Mason. From as far back as I can remember, Mason was always the favorite. He could do no wrong, even when he did everything wrong. When I was 16, I got my first job at a diner to help Mom pay bills. Mason, 2 years younger, spent his days playing video games and getting into trouble. Mom would just sigh and say, "He's still figuring himself out." When I got into nursing school, I worked nights to cover my tuition. When Mason dropped out of college, Mom took out a loan to help him find his path. That path never led anywhere, but somehow he always landed on his feet, usually because I was there to catch him. Everything changed after Mom got sick. It was breast cancer. I took shifts at the hospital, then came home to care for her. Mason showed up when he felt like it, usually when there was something in it for her. I didn't complain. I told myself I was doing what a daughter should. After 2 years of treatments and hospital stays, Mom started feeling better. I thought maybe things would finally be okay. I thought she'd see how much I'd done for her, how much I loved her. But life doesn't always pay back your good deeds the way you expect. One afternoon, I stopped by her lawyer's office to drop off her medical power of attorney papers. Mom had asked me to handle it, like I always did. While I was there, the lawyer, an older man named Mr. Henley, looked uneasy when I mentioned her will. I wasn't supposed to see it, but something in his face told me there was more I didn't know. I asked, "Is there something I should be aware of, Mr. Henley?" He hesitated, then said softly, "Kala, your mother updated her will last month. Everything, the house, the savings, even the jewelry, is going to your brother." For a moment, I didn't understand the words. I just stared at him. "All of it?" He nodded, apologetic. "I'm sorry. I thought you already knew." I felt like the air was sucked out of the room. My chest hurt. My hands started shaking. I'd taken care of her every single day. I'd given up vacations, friends, and any kind of life outside work. And for what? Driving home that day, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. My mother, the woman I'd trusted most, had left me nothing, not even a thank you. It wasn't about the money or the house. It was about what it meant. That was the moment something inside me broke, and something new began to grow, a quiet, steady anger that I could no longer ignore. I grew up in a quiet Ohio town where people waved from their porches and everyone knew everyone else's business. Our house sat at the end of a narrow street, with peeling white paint and a porch swing that creaked in the wind. From the outside, we looked like any ordinary family. Inside, though, the rules were never the same for everyone. Mom, Diane, wanted perfection, but only from me. I had to keep straight A's, wash the dishes, fold laundry just the way she liked it, and never talk back. Mason, on the other hand, could lie about where he'd been, skip school, and still get kissed on the head like he was the second coming. Mom would say, "He just needs more time to figure himself out, Kala," as if being 2 years younger made him immune to responsibility. I remember one summer afternoon when I was 14. Mason had broken a neighbor's window with a baseball and ran home crying. Mom pulled him into her arms, scolding me instead for not watching your brother. When I tried to explain, she cut me off with that look, the one that said I'd already lost. Mason got ice cream that night. I got silence. That's how it always was, him making the mess, me cleaning it up. He'd borrow my things without asking, wreck them, and I'd be the one told to let it go. If I got angry, I was the problem. If I cried, I was too sensitive. It taught me early how to swallow feelings and smile through the sting. When I started high school, I worked weekends at a diner. Mason spent his time at the mall with friends. Mom bragged to her coworkers about my grades, but never once said she was proud. She just told me, "You're supposed to do well." But if Mason passed a single class, she baked him a cake. The older we got, the clearer the divide became. Mom treated him like a fragile ornament and me like a household tool. She'd hand him money without question and tell me to stop keeping score. When I got accepted into nursing school, I thought maybe she'd finally see me as more than the built-in caretaker. Instead, she told me not to get too proud. Mason dropped out of college a year later, and Mom blamed the school for not understanding his potential. Sometimes at night, I'd hear them laughing together in the kitchen. I'd stay in my room, pretending to study, but really I just sat there, feeling invisible. There was a warmth between them I could never reach, no matter how hard I tried. That was the rhythm of our home, me holding everything together while Mason drifted through life without consequence. Mom's love was a scale that never balanced, no matter how much weight I carried. I learned to accept it quietly, thinking that one day she'd see me for who I was. I didn't know then that the scales would never tip in my favor. The smell of old paper and coffee hit me as I stepped into Mr. Henley's office again. The place hadn't changed, same oak desk, same stack of dusty books lining the wall. I was only there to drop off updated medical forms for Mom. It was supposed to be a quick stop, nothing more. Mr. Henley smiled politely, though his eyes looked tired. "Good to see you, Calla. Just leave the papers there," he said, motioning to a tray by the corner of his desk. I handed them over, but hesitated before turning to leave. Something about his tone felt distant. I'd known this man since I was a teenager. He'd helped Mom after Dad passed. Usually he asked about my work, my patients, how Mom was doing. Today, nothing. I cleared my throat. "Actually, while I'm here, I wanted to check if everything's current with her power of attorney." He paused mid-reach, pen hovering over a file. "Yes, current," he said slowly. Then he glanced at another folder, a red one with my mother's name printed across the top. His hand twitched as if to close it. I frowned. Something wrong. He took off his glasses, cleaning them with a handkerchief, buying time. "Not wrong," he said carefully. "Just delicate." That word sat heavy in the air. I stepped closer. "Mr. Henley, if this has to do with my mother's affairs, I have a right to know." He sighed, the kind of sigh that carries weight. "Calla, your mother updated her will last month. She made significant changes." I didn't speak. My stomach tightened. He continued, almost reluctantly. "She named your brother as sole heir. The house, her savings, even personal effects." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. "Everything." He nodded once. "I'm truly sorry. I assumed you were aware." The room felt smaller. My ears rang. I remembered the nights I'd stayed by her hospital bed, the way I'd spoon-fed her soup when she couldn't lift her hand. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear him say something about it being her decision. I stared at the folder on his desk. My name was nowhere in it, not even as a backup. Mason, who never showed up when she needed him, who called only when he was short on cash, was getting everything. I forced a shaky breath. "Did she give a reason?" Mr. Henley shook his head. "She said Mason would know what to do with it all." The words cut deeper than I expected. I managed a small nod, thanked him, and walked out before my voice could crack. Outside, the sun was too bright. The world looked the same, but something inside me had shifted. I stood by my car for a long time, gripping the handle, trying to steady myself. That day didn't just reveal a will, it revealed truth. My mother's trust, her love, everything I believed was shared between us, had never been real. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And it changed everything. I didn't plan on confronting her that day. I just drove straight from work, still in my scrubs, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The house looked the same, trimmed hedges, the porch light still flickering, but it felt different now. Every brick, every window, every piece of it suddenly belonged to someone else. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, folding towels. Mason was slouched on the couch, feet up, eating chips like he owned the place. The sight made my stomach twist. "Mom, we need to talk," I said, stepping inside. She glanced up, calm at first, then tense when she saw my face. "What's wrong, Calla?" I took a breath, forcing the words out evenly. "I stopped by Mr. Henley's office. He told me about the will." Her hands froze mid-fold. Mason didn't even look over. He just smirked and kept chewing. I waited, hoping she'd deny it, say it was some misunderstanding. Instead, she sighed, tired and impatient. "I didn't want you finding out like that." "So it's true?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes, I changed it." "Why?" My voice cracked. "After everything, why?" Mom's tone sharpened. "Because Mason needs the help more than you do. You have a job, you're fine. He's still trying to get on his feet." I felt heat rush to my face. "He's been trying for 15 years, Mom. You call that trying?" Mason laughed under his breath. "Guess being the favorite finally pays off." I turned toward him, shaking. "You think this is funny?" He leaned back, smug. "You always acted like you were better than me. Maybe Mom's just setting things right." "Enough," Mom snapped, but her eyes weren't on him, they were on me. "Don't talk to your brother like that." That hit harder than anything. "I'm the one who took care of you when you were sick," I said, my voice trembling. "I cooked, cleaned, stayed up all night. Mason couldn't even bother to visit. And this is how you repay me." Her mouth tightened. "Don't make this about you. You're being selfish." I stared at her, speechless. "Selfish? I gave up my life for you." She crossed her arms, unmoved. "You did what any daughter should do. Mason's had a harder time than you realize." I laughed, bitter and broken. "He's had it easier than anyone I've ever met." The air in the room turned heavy. For a moment, none of us spoke. Mason looked pleased, like he was watching a show meant just for him. Finally, I grabbed my bag from the counter. "You know what? Keep it all. The house, the money, the lies. You've already made your choice." Mom said my name, softer now, but I didn't turn around. I walked out the door without another word, my hands trembling, my chest hollow. The night air felt colder than I remembered. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I wasn't coming back. I stopped answering my phone for a while. After that night, everything felt dull. The drive to work, the sound of monitors beeping, even the smell of coffee in the hospital break room. I moved like someone half awake, doing what I had to, nothing more. My coworkers noticed, but I brushed them off with tired smile. At the end of each shift, I'd sit in my car with the engine off, staring at the dashboard until the parking lot emptied. Some nights I didn't go home at all. The thought of walking into that apartment, pretending everything was normal, was too much. Eli, my boyfriend, tried to understand at first. We'd been together 4 years, long enough to know each other's moods. But even he got tired of the silence between us. One night, when I came home late, he was waiting by the door. "You've got to stop letting this eat you alive," he said, voice low but edged. I dropped my bag on the floor. "You don't get it. I get that you're hurting," he said, stepping closer. "But holding on to it isn't going to change what she did." I turned away. "She didn't just rewrite a will, Eli. She erased me." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Then move on. She's never going to be who you want her to be." I looked at him, tired and angry. "You make it sound easy." "It is, if you stop trying to fix everything," he said. "You can't save people who don't want saving." The words stung, maybe because they were true. I didn't reply. That night I slept in my car outside the hospital. I woke to the sound of rain tapping the windshield, my neck stiff, my hands freezing. I sat there watching the sun rise, wondering when I'd started living everyone else's life instead of my own. Everywhere I turned, I saw the same pattern, me cleaning up, smoothing over, holding things together so no one else had to. My mother, my brother, even Eli. I was always the one patching the cracks while everyone else walked away untouched. The anger came slowly, steady like a heartbeat. It wasn't loud or wild, it was quiet, focused. For the first time, I saw my life without excuses. Every sacrifice I'd made, every apology I'd swallowed, had led me to this, a woman who had given everything and been left with nothing. One afternoon, between rounds at the hospital, I caught my reflection in a window. My hair was a mess, my eyes hollow, but there was something new in them. Something sharper. I didn't want pity. I didn't want forgiveness. I wanted distance. That was the moment it clicked. I couldn't change them, but I could change me. I didn't need to wait for their approval or apology. I didn't need to fix their mistakes anymore. That was the real breaking point, the quiet, steady decision to stop being the one who always stayed. I changed my number the next week. No warnings, no explanations. I just erased the contacts that tied me to that house. Mom, Mason, every relative who'd ever taken her side. The silence that followed was strange at first, almost too clean. For the first time in my life, there were no messages asking for favors, no guilt-laced calls about family obligations. Just quiet. Holidays came and went without me. Thanksgiving passed with no turkey, no phone ringing, no one asking if I'd drive over early to help set the table. I worked the night shift that day, passing plates of mashed potatoes to patients instead. It hurt, but not the way I thought it would. There was something peaceful about being needed by strangers instead of being used by family. The first message found me through Aunt Lorna, who still worked at the post office. She stopped me one morning and handed me a folded note. "Your mom wanted me to give you this," she said carefully. I thanked her, took it, and tossed it in the trash before leaving the parking lot. Then came the stories, whispered updates from people who didn't know when to mind their business. Mason's big investment had gone bad. He'd borrowed money from the wrong people, started some kind of half-baked landscaping company that folded in 3 months. I didn't react. I just nodded, finished my coffee, and went back to work. Mom tried again through Cousin Rita, who left me a voicemail I didn't answer. "Your mother's worried," she said. "She says family shouldn't hold grudges." I listened once, deleted it, and drove home in silence. I rented a small apartment across town, nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, a leaky faucet, a view of the laundromat across the street. But it was mine. No one told me what needed fixing. No one complained about how I spent my money. I could finally breathe. At night, I'd sit by the window with a mug of tea, the city humming below me. I wondered sometimes what they were doing. If Mason had finally realized how much he'd taken for granted, if Mom ever looked around that big house and thought about who kept it running all those years. But I didn't reach out. I didn't even think about it for long. Months turned into a year. My shifts got steadier, my savings grew. I bought new furniture, started taking weekend trips by myself, things I'd never let myself do before. Every small choice felt like a quiet rebellion. People say family ties are unbreakable, but they've never seen what happens when those ties are made of guilt instead of love. Once I stopped answering, they had nothing left to pull on. I didn't hate them, not anymore. I just didn't owe them anything. The distance I'd always been denied was finally mine, and I wasn't about to give it back. 3 years slipped by before I heard her name again. Life had steadied, my work, my routine, my peace. Until a familiar voice broke through one afternoon at the hospital. It was Mrs. Keaton, one of Mom's old friends, waiting in the lobby with a cane in her hand and worry all over her face. "Calla," she said softly, "your mother isn't doing well." I froze. What happened? Her eyes dimmed. Her heart. "She's weak, and Mason, well, he's nowhere to be found. She asked for you." The words hit like a stone dropped in water, quiet at first, but rippling deep. I hadn't spoken to Mom since the day I left. I didn't even know if she still lived in the same house. My instinct was to walk away, but something in Mrs. Keaton's face stopped me. That night, I sat awake on my couch, staring at the dark ceiling. The anger had cooled over the years, but the scar was still there, sharp and sensitive. I tried to convince myself she'd made her bed, that Mason could deal with her now. But my chest felt heavy, like some small piece of me still belonged to her. 2 days later, I drove back to the street I swore I'd never see again. The porch light still flickered. Paint peeled from the siding. The garden I used to tend was just dirt and weeds now. I stood there for a long time before knocking. No one answered, so I pushed the door open. The smell of dust and stale air hit first. The living room was cluttered with unopened mail and broken furniture. A blanket trailed from the couch to the floor. The house looked abandoned, except for the faint sound of coughing down the hall. I followed it to her bedroom. The sight stopped me cold. Mom sat propped against a stack of pillows, her skin pale, her frame small enough to look swallowed by the bed. She blinked when she saw me. "Calla." Her voice was barely a whisper. I stood in the doorway, unable to move. She reached out a trembling hand. "I didn't think you'd come." I stayed still. "Mrs. Keaton said you were sick. She called you." Her lips trembled into something like a smile. "I told her not to bother you." "Guess she didn't listen," I said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears. "Mason promised he'd be here. He said he'd take care of everything." I looked around the room. Dishes stacked on the nightstand. Unpaid bills scattered on the dresser. "He's not here," I said flatly. She turned her face away, ashamed. He stopped answering. I thought he just needed time. That word, time, cut through me. The same excuse she'd used my whole life. Only now it sounded hollow. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was thick, filled with everything we'd never said. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile, almost childlike. And though part of me wanted to hate her, another part felt something close to sorrow. I didn't know if I could forgive her, but I knew I couldn't walk out this time, not yet. I stayed for a week, long enough to get her prescriptions filled, clean the house, and make sure she was eating. Every day she asked if I'd heard from Mason, and every day I said no. Her face would fall, but not from surprise, more like disappointment in him that she refused to admit. On the 7th morning, I opened a drawer while looking for her insurance papers and froze. Inside were empty jewelry boxes, the ones that once held Grandma's locket, Dad's cufflinks, and the silver bracelet Mom swore she'd passed down to me. My chest tightened. I checked the closet, the shelves, the safe behind her old coats. Gone. All of it. I walked back to her room, holding one of the empty boxes. "Where are the heirlooms, Mom?" She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "They're gone," I said. "Every piece. Even Dad's watch." Her lips pressed together, her hands twisting the blanket. "Mason needed money. He promised he'd buy them back once he got things sorted." My stomach dropped. "You let him sell Dad's things?" "He didn't mean any harm," she said softly, eyes pleading. "He's been under so much pressure." I felt my throat tighten. "He's been under pressure his whole life, and you've always found someone else to carry it for. Usually me." "Calla, please," she whispered. "Don't start this again. He made a mistake." I stared at her, trying to find the mother I'd once believed in. But all I saw was the same blind loyalty that had driven everything between us. "A mistake is forgetting to lock the door, not pawning your father's watch." Her voice cracked. "He's still your brother. And you're still defending him," I said quietly. "Even when he takes the last thing Dad left us." She turned her head away, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You don't understand, Calla. He needs help." The words hit like a dull echo. I'd heard them all my life, just another excuse in a long line of them. Only now, something inside me stopped bending to it. I set the empty box on her dresser. "He needs to face the mess he made. And you need to stop pretending love means cleaning up after him." Her hand reached out, shaking. "Don't leave angry." I looked around the room one last time. The faded wallpaper, the framed photo of Mason on graduation day, the one of me half hidden behind him. It all felt smaller now, like the walls themselves were tired of the same story. "I'm not angry," I said. "Just done." She called my name as I walked out, her voice weak and frightened, but I didn't turn back. The air outside was sharp and cold, filling my lungs with something that felt close to freedom. This time, I didn't plan on coming back. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I packed what little I owned into my car, clothes, a few books, my father's old photo that I'd managed to keep, and drove until the road narrowed into quiet trees and open sky. The town I found was small, tucked between rolling hills and thick wood, a place where no one knew my name or my past. It felt right. The house I bought sat at the edge of a gravel road, a modest single story with pale blue siding and a porch that faced the forest. It wasn't much, but it was mine, the first thing in my life that belonged to me alone. I spent the first few weeks painting the walls, fixing the cabinets, learning the rhythm of solitude. The silence that once scared me now felt like company. Work was steady. The local clinic needed nurses, and I took extra shifts when I wanted to, not because I had to. My savings grew for the first time in years. I planted wildflowers by the mailbox, cooked simple dinners, and fell asleep to the sound of crickets instead of argument. Each small piece of peace felt like a victory I didn't have to announce. I never called home. I didn't ask about Mason or my mother. The distance became a wall no one could climb. Some evenings, when the wind carried the sound of a train through the trees, I'd imagine the old house, the lights off, the porch empty, and feel nothing but calm. Months turned into seasons. Then one day, an old coworker from my hometown stopped by the clinic, surprised to see me. Her smile faded as she said, "You heard about your mom, right?" I felt my pulse slow. "No. What happened?" She passed. "A few weeks ago. Heart failure." I nodded. The words didn't sting the way I thought they would. She went on, hesitant. "The house is gone too. Foreclosure. Mason tried to sell it before the bank took it, but no one would buy." I thanked her, finished my shift, and went home without saying another word. That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, staring out at the dark line of trees. Somewhere, Mason was probably still blaming the world, still expecting someone to fix his life. But I wasn't that person anymore. No letters, no calls, no visits. I didn't interfere when he fell, didn't offer a hand like before. My silence said everything I never could, that I had finally let go. The world had balanced itself without my help. I didn't need revenge in the way people think of it. No shouting, no payback. Just distance. Just peace. That was enough. Watching their world crumble while mine quietly bloomed felt like justice without cruelty. For once, I didn't feel small or invisible. I didn't need anyone to see how far I'd come. The quiet had become my strength, and in that silence, I found what they never gave me, freedom. The letter came on a gray morning in late autumn. The envelope was creased, the handwriting shaky, the return address unfamiliar. I almost tossed it with the junk mail until I saw the name, Mason. For a moment, my breath caught. I hadn't seen or heard from him in years, not since the house was lost and Mom was gone. I sat at my kitchen table, the one I'd sanded and painted myself, and turned the letter over in my hand. The paper felt thin, fragile, as if it might fall apart if I pressed too hard. I opened it slowly. The first line was simple. "Calla, I don't expect you to forgive me." He went on to explain where he was, a rehab center outside Cincinnati. He said he'd lost everything, the car, what little money he had, and the few people still willing to answer his calls. He wrote about Mom's final days, how he'd been too drunk to visit her, how he thought she was mad at him when she stopped calling. His words rambled, but I could see the desperation bleeding through every line. "You were right about me," he wrote near the end. "You were the only one who ever saw things clearly. I know it's too late to say this, but I'm sorry. I just hope you're okay." I read it twice, then a third time. There was no anger in me, no satisfaction either. Just quiet understanding, the kind that comes when a storm finally runs out of rain. I folded the letter carefully and carried it to the fireplace. The house was still, the only sound the soft crackle of wood burning low. I placed the paper on the flames and watched as the edges curled and darkened. The ink blurred, words melting into ash. For a long time, I sat there, watching the pieces lift and drift upward. They rose like tiny gray ghosts before fading into nothing. I thought about how much of my life had been spent waiting for people to change, for love to mean fairness, for family to mean kindness. But peace had never come from them. It had come from the day I walked away. Outside, the trees swayed gently in the wind. The woods were almost bare now, the air cool and clean. I pulled my sweater close and stayed by the fire until only embers were left. There was no need for revenge, no need for closure in words. Letting go had been the quiet answer all along. When I finally stood, the last bit of ash floated up the chimney, carried somewhere I'd never follow. I didn't look back. I didn't feel empty. I just felt free, the kind of free that comes not from running, but from finally stopping. That was my ending, simple and still. No bitterness, no noise, just the sound of peace filling every empty corner I'd once given away. Do you think I did the right thing by walking away for good, or should I have given them another chance? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.